Hello and welcome back to the Codeigniter series. On our last video we went ahead and configured Codeigniter, and now in this video we're going to go ahead and use it. This lesson is going to be very exciting because you're going to see how simple it is to set stuff up in Codeigniter. So let's go ahead and load up Codeigniter. You can see we still have the welcome page that we had from the last video, but this isn't what we're going to want people to see when we go to our Codeigniter website. So what we need to do is create a new model view and controller. Let's go ahead and open up phpMyAdmin and create a post table. We're going to create the name of the table to be posts. One thing you want to keep in mind is that all of the tables that you create, you want them to be plural. And this is just a naming convention for MVCs and with Codeigniter. You want your controllers to be plural as well, and the models are going to be the singular variation. You don't have to do it this way, but it's a best practice, and some MVC frameworks actually require that. So let's go ahead and make a simple post table. I'm going to have 6 different fields in it. The first field is going to be the post ID, and we're just going to have this as the standard auto increment, and it's going to be the primary index. The rest of these fields are self-explanatory. If you're not sure what any of these are, then you're probably going to want a little bit more MySQL experience. But you can see we have a title that can be 255 characters. We have the post, which has all the post content in it. We have date added, which is a timestamp, and we're grabbing the current timestamp whenever we add the post. Then we have a user ID and whether or not the post is active. Let's go ahead and save this. So now we've created the table. Let's go ahead and first create a model for this. In your favorite text editor, let's go ahead and create a new file inside the model folder, which is inside of the application folder. We're going to save this as post.php. Remember, this is the singular version. We're going to open the PHP tag. The way that you start a model is you create a class. Each model is a class. So I wrote class post extend ci_model. You can see class post, the post is the name of the model, post.php, and it extends ci_model. What that means is this model is going to share all of the classes and functions that Codeigniter models have. Once we've done that, let's go ahead and make a couple different functions. We're going to make a function that grabs all the posts. So do function getPost, and I'm going to add 2 different variables in this. You can see I did num equals 20 and start equals 0. That just means that we're going to grab by default 20 of the post, and we're going to start with the first post. So what do we want this function to do? We want it to connect to the database, and we want it to select everything from post and grab the results and return it. What we want to do is take advantage of the database library that we're auto-loading, and that happens to do with active record. So we're going to comment out this query, and we're going to show you how you do it in Codeigniter. So first we're going to do this db select. So this class, we're going to go ahead and use the database library, and we're going to select. We could put a star in here, but that's a default, so we're going to leave it blank. Then we're going to say from. We want it from the post table. Then we do where. So when we want it so where active equals 1. Then we do order by, and then we just put the limit. As you can see, this is a lot easier to read on your eyes. You're selecting everything from post where active equals 1, and you're ordering by date added descending, limiting the first record and 20 results. We want to change that 0 and 20 to the variables right there. So once we've done that, we need to go ahead and tell Codeigniter to get the results. To do that, we do this db_get. And that's the same as running the actual query. If you do this in regular PHP, you might do query equals MySQL query and then whatever SQL you have. So the last thing we want to do is we want to return those results whenever someone calls a function. So to do this, we do query result array. And you don't have to return everything in an array, but that's what I like to do because it's just my preference. You could also do query result and that would return an object instead of an array. However you want to do it is totally up to you. Now that we have our function made, let's go ahead and create a new controller. What we want to do is we want to create a new file in the controllers folder, and we're going to call that post.php. To start off this controller, it's similar to the model. We did class post extend ci underscore controller. It's very similar. We're using the plural version, which matches the name of the PHP file and the table, and it extends Codeigniter's controller. So you're getting all the classes and functions that make Codeigniter run. Remember that the controller is the middleman. So when you access a page, it goes to the controller, and then the controller tells you what to do. So it's going to communicate with the model and then send everything to the view. So we're going to create a function called index, and that means when we access the post controller, we go to this function first. On this page, we want it to grab the post and display it on the browser. So let's first load the model. To do this, we do this load model, and then we put in the name of the model. You can see I didn't put .php, and that's because you just don't have to add the .php. Then what we want to do is we want to create an array called data. And so data is going to hold all different variables and arrays, just everything that the view is going to need to use. It sends everything over to it. So I'm going to say data post equals this post get post. So what this means is we've loaded the model, and it's called post. So we're using the post model, and we're calling the function of getPost. Part of the importance of making the model the singular version is if we made it the same name as post.php, we did this posts, then Codeigniter would error out because it wouldn't be sure if it should be using the model or the controller. So now we have this data. All we want to do is output that to the browser. So before we create a view, let's go ahead and just print this array. You can see I'm just going to echo out all of this information. It isn't what you'd want to do, but we just want to see if everything's working right now. When we reload the page, you can see it's still going to the welcome file. So how do we access this post controller? By default, we're going to do a /index.php, and that's that file that's in the root of the folder, and then post is the controller. Let's load that. You can see we have a blank array. So it's doing something, but there's no results, and that's because we don't have any posts in the database. Let's just go ahead and put in some dummy data. So I put in some dummy content. You can see I didn't set a user ID because we don't have that table yet. And I have 2 posts that are active and 1 that is not. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. Now we have the 2 results. It doesn't have the one that's not active. And it's just laid out very simple. I love how Codeigniter puts in an array like I asked it to. It's very easy to use this data and output it however I want. Let's now create a simple view. We're going to create a new file in the views folder, and we're going to call this post index. Now on this page, you don't need to create this as a class. It's just where all the HTML goes. I went ahead and just pasted in a very simple page so you can see what it is. And I don't want to have to explain all the CSS. Let's look at what's most important though. You can see we have where the blog posts are. We're doing so if there isn't a post array set, then they're going to tell us there's no post. Otherwise, we're going to do a for each and output all of the data. You can see we have the post array here. So how are we getting that? If we go back to the controller, we can see in this data array, we have something called post. So what that does is when it passes to the view, post is now a variable. That variable happens to be an array. So how do we go ahead and load this view? This is going to work just like the model. We're going to say this load view post index. We're not doing .php just like the model. Let's save this and load the page. You can see when we go to the page, it says there's no blog post. And the reason why that is because we didn't tell it to pass the data array over to the view. To do that, all you have to do is do a comma and write data. If you save that and load it, now you can see we have the two different test posts there. It's very simple to do. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to set it up so these pages are a little bit prettier with the address itself. You don't want to have to do index.php for everything. And we want to make it so when we first load Codeigniter, it's not going to show the welcome controller. So first, let's go to the Codeigniter folder under Application, then Config, there's Routes. Routes.php, you can see we have a default folder, or default route as welcome. Let's change that to post. Let's save that and go back to the web browser. Now when I load the Codeigniter folder, it's going to the post controller that we want. That's good, but if we wanted to go to any subpages, we'd still have to do index.php/post, then whatever the function inside the controller is. Let's go ahead and make an htaccess file. It's pretty standard to set this up, but let's go to Codeigniter's user guide. So if we go to codeigniter.com and click read the user guide, if you click on table of contents, you can see there's a lot of stuff here. If you're not sure where you want to go, then let's just go ahead and do a search. Let's just search for htaccess. When we go there, let's click on the first result. This is a great article. It talks about how the Codeigniter's URLs work, but let's scroll down and we can see removing the index.php file. All you have to do is copy this and add this in the htaccess file. Let's save this. I'm going to make one small change, and I'm not going to have the slash before index.php. I'm doing this because I have all of these files within a different folder. It's not on the root. Now when I go to ci series/post, it loads the post page. We don't have to have index.php first. If I load it with index.php/post, it still works. This video showed you how to set up your first model, view, and controller. In the next video, we're going to look more into active record and all of the different possibilities that you have, and when sometimes it's better to go ahead and use a query instead of active record.